Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. I'm Joe Wilson, CEO of SorWil Technology Solutions. I'm with Kathryn Hancock, our Director of Marketing, and our special guest today is Penny Holler, the Assistant City Manager of Leavenworth, Kansas. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Joe.
We're really excited to have you. We've taken a couple of weeks off because we've had trouble getting guests to. Everybody's so busy,
Sure.
so this is our first podcast back in a couple of weeks.
hmm
So we're just getting back into the groove, and we really just want to hear about you. How did you come to Leavenworth? How did you become assistant city manager? We want the scoop.
Where did it all
Sure.
start?
Okay, well, I'll try to give as much of a scoop as there is. I'm a military spouse.
Okay.
What brought us here to Kansas was the Army saying, Matthew Holler, you're going to go to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And we packed up two kids and a dog in a minivan once again and drove to Fort Leavenworth. I don't think I'd ever been to the state of Kansas before. So this was all new. All I knew about Kansas is Kansas City had two parts separated by a river. So I knew there was a Kansas City, Missouri, and a Kansas City, Kansas. That's all I knew.
At
Oh
least you
wow.
knew that. Most people don't know the difference.
So that was kind of the start
Okay.
of, I'd say, falling in love with the Leavenworth area. It's been a really amazing experience. So that was 10 years ago.
Okay.
I had a 1 year old and a 2 year old. My spouse had just gotten back from a deployment and we were moving here. So, in grand total, my spouse was stationed at Fort Leavenworth for 4 years, which was really just an amazing time.
Mhm.
And I don't think everyone really appreciates from a military side what a great place Fort Leavenworth is in the Leavenworth community. So
Mhm.
I'd say very quickly, we were not only military transplants that were here, but we felt like we were community members and we had neighbors and just people really embrace us. We got a chance to be in the downtown and shop in local businesses and make some friends. So 10 years later, when I had the chance to come back to Leavenworth and be the assistant city manager, we said, yeah, that's great. Let's do it. So the reason that my family is here is for my job.
Mhm.
If you're not aware, the city manager and the assistant city manager are both required by law to live in the city.
Okay.
So that was great for us. We're like, yeah, that's a job perk, not a difficulty. So excited
Oh
to be
wow.
back.
And
Awesome.
your husband is still in the military, or he's out now, or?
So he was in the active duty for a long time. That's
Okay.
what brought us to Fort Leavenworth. And then he actually transferred to the National Guard. So
Okay.
he's currently in the Kansas National Guard. That's his part time job. I say real job. He's a civil engineer
Oh,
in
okay.
transmission distribution in Kansas City.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's
Impressive for both of you.
we stay busy. Yeah, he was actually just deployed last year.
Oh.
He was in the Middle East, so that was quite the time. But I'll say if you got to be in a community with your family while your spouse is deployed, this is such a great place to be. You have people who really understand your experience and will help. We had neighbors who came and said, "Whatever you need, please call us." And I took advantage of that a couple times. So this was just such a good location for us for that.
It's a great community. We came here, I think I tell the story all the time. In 1985, my dad was stationed in Germany, and he just said, "Hey, we're going to Hawaii," and then we ended up in Leavenworth. So, I mean, that's my story. He ended up at the DB as a counselor, and they changed his orders at the very last minute, and so I spent weeks thinking I was going to Hawaii, and ended up with no ocean. So I've been here since '85 as well, and it is a great community. We left for a few years, we moved to Jersey where I took a job in 2015, and we were just eager to come back. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful community. It's very close. Everybody cares, and so we're excited about it as well. Let's talk economic development.
Absolutely.
Um, so you're also the economic development director.
So I'm the assistant city manager and I'm the economic development director.
Okay. We talk about, and I think the biggest thing I hear all the time is we have a beautiful downtown
Sure.
that's very empty. What are some of the reasons behind that?
Well, I would challenge the it's very empty a little bit.
Okay.
Because I see growth.
Uh-huh.
And maybe that's just because I have the vantage point of working with entrepreneurs, of getting the phone calls, hey, I want to be in downtown Leavenworth. Are there any spaces available? So I have those conversations every day, if not every week. So I see the growth and I see the change. I see next to nature who moved into a
Yep.
bigger space over there on got me Shawnee. Cherokee. I'm gonna get the street wrong.
Yeah.
I work with the entrepreneurs. I see Carrie Payer and First City Creatives moved into a space in Ron Booth's building, and that's
Hmm.
really just be an
Yeah.
activated space in the downtown. And the space where she left is now going to be a quilt shop expansion, which is if you're a quilt fanatic, and there are some of them, that's a really cool spot to be. And we have several quilt shops downtown. So I guess for me, it's the opposite. The Red Hibiscus, the
My
Juice
favorite place.
Company. I see the growth, and I see some positive change. I'm not unaware, right? Like we live here, we shop here, we're in the downtown.
Hmm.
That there are some struggles and there are some visibly empty storefronts and businesses. To which I'd say the city has several programs that we're working on, and I'm happy to walk through that. I'd also say this is one of those, how do we solve our problems? Ideally, we're going to do it together, right? There's only so much you can look to the city to do with our
Hmm.
resources and staffing. At the end of the day, I'd say looking at the issue of the downtown, that's a we issue. That's a how do we all work together to
Together.
do this? I'd say if you're in Leavenworth and you're not shopping in the downtown, but you want it to be a cool, activated space with all this neat stuff, maybe come downtown. Maybe hit up one of the Main Street events when they have the concerts and, come to one of the nonprofit fundraisers
Hmm.
and
Have
be
fun.
present and be there. Because I think if we alone as a community did that, we would see a lot more activity. And then that momentum draws, right? That's what we want to see. We want to see people in Kansas City. Hey, I've heard about Leavenworth. Hey, what's going on? We want to see some of these storefronts be filled. So it's helpful to say, well, here's these great ideas of how we could solve it. How do we solve it? What can you do? What can I do? For me, that's what's going to make it grow even more and faster.
I saw that new project they're doing where they're renovating the above parts of the building. It's called like the Rooms Project. I'm not sure.
So there's some
Where
grant
they're
funds
yeah.
available. I mean, that's a great example. So we're always trying to work with our local partners and try to find grants or other resources that we can bring to Leavenworth. So that's a great one. It's the state of Kansas that
Uh-huh.
has some grant funding available for that. I think we all want to figure out what that is, share it amongst ourselves, and then do the outreach to get it out to the folks who can use it. So that's a
Okay.
great example. The HEAL grant is one for struggling downtown buildings. And I know Main Street had tried to work on a grant on behalf of, I'll call it the Bruce Springsteen building. If you're from here, you'll know what that is. But trying to just make those resource connections. I'd say a lot of our local partners, and when I say local partners, I'm talking LCDC, I'm talking the Chamber, I'm talking Main Street, I'm talking Grow Leavenworth County are really kind of the four partners. So we're all really trying to put those pieces together because it'd be great if we could bring in some outside funding from state or federal or other groups into Leavenworth to do some of that.
Do you work with any local like Lansing or Base or Tongi and stuff to help with development at all or
So yes, I'd say the simple answer is they're all Leavenworth County.
okay.
So in some ways, we have had, especially working through LCDC and the Port Authority, with some of our large development projects. They're integral partners. Leavenworth County as a government, the cities of Tonganoxie, Basel, Lansing, and Leavenworth. There's been some shifting of that recently, but that's really how we look at that. And we communicate. So, as an example, met a couple months ago with the team from Tonganoxie,
Okay.
George and Dan over there, and said, I hear you guys are doing RHID. Tell us what you did. Tell us how successful that's been. Tell us what you've learned. In government, tell us what not to do, right? Can we, if you've learned some things that we can now do, what can we learn? So definitely watching what's going on there. Basel just got a new grocery store.
Yeah.
That was something they heard from their community. So it's information sharing, and then how do we, kind of work together on that? And sort of this, it's not the underground economic development group, but if you haven't heard of Grow Leavenworth County Development Corporation, it's this team of volunteers. I think a couple of us in the room are on the team. So this is the city of Lansing, the city of Leavenworth, LCDC as the county's economic development corporation, representation, Main Street,
Okay.
it participates, and just volunteers who are passionate about growing economic development in the area. And that group has connected entrepreneurs with loans across Leavenworth County. That includes Baser and Tonganoxie. There's going to be a new brewery in Tonganoxie, and that came to this group to help with some gap financing. So I'd say yes. Ideally, we're working through some of those channels and systems, and I'd love that this is a community that, as a general rule, will volunteer, will step forward and say, I'm in on this idea, on this vision. How can I help with that? And I love that.
As a kid, I remember when you could go downtown and you could go to a department store, you could get a pair of tennis shoes. I mean, it was very vibrant. So when I say it's empty now, I think back to that time. And I've talked to a number of people who recall that time. And I'm not sure where that time dipped and people started to move away,
Mhm.
whether people just kind of aged out. I have heard one of the things that has been told me is that they roll up the sidewalks too soon, right? They're closed at 5 o'clock, barely open on the weekends. It's hard to say shop Leavenworth if nobody's open.
Mhm.
What do you think about that as a reason, or do you think that's part of the problem?
Yeah, I'm gonna pause. I mean, I'm not sure is a simple way to put it. So, nationwide statistics on businesses will tell us that sometimes peak shopping is after work hours,
Mhm.
right? So we know that as a general rule, a lot of people want to shop after 5 p.m. when they get off of work. And that sometimes tends to not be when our small businesses are open. At the same time, what I hear from the local businesses is, well, when I'm open, I don't get the foot traffic and the sales then. So I'm not sure if merely being open later hours is the magic bullet, but that could be one solution. I know for a long time, Main Street did the Alive After Five, which
Mhm.
Sure.
tried to have activity after hours and bring folks downtown and get them just to visit the shops. I will tell you what, we were here 10 years ago. I've now been here for 4 years. And almost every time I do that, there is something new that I get to see or experience. There's a new business or building I haven't been in. And that was for a while a great program to just have that opportunity. And I know they're looking at what does that look like? But the chicken and egg, right? Is it the people being there, being present in the downtown, and the businesses will stay open, or is it the businesses should just stay open and the people will come there? That's one piece of it. There's also just marketing and outreach. Because again, I had the luxury of working with all these great businesses that are in the downtown. I do my Christmas shopping, half of it. Okay, Amazon gets some of my money too. But I do a lot of my Christmas shopping downtown. And, like my spouse who's impossible to buy for, Grona's Hardware will have something. And the Kansas Country Mart, we will buy some fudge while we're there, and then we'll get some ornaments. And CJ Gift, I think, did half my living room and fun stuff. So I get the chance to kind of get there and get to see what's available. And then I come back because I know what there is to offer. And I'm just not sure people locally or people regionally know what Leavenworth has to offer.
Mhm.
Camp Leavenworth last year, I think, was a huge success. You guys did
Every
a
year.
phenomenal job, especially last year. I think every year I think it's different. Used to be Buffalo Bill Cody days when I was young.
Mhm.
Those were always exciting at the carnival. You walk down Delaware and you could see the stores, and it was just filled with people. Last year I think was a great job. All
Great.
the food trucks, and I heard a lot of positive news about that, and the ability for we met Drake Childress there with International Clothing and his Peaceful, and who's been very instrumental with some of the work that we've done a lot of our
Hmm,
shirts all from Camp Leavenworth. So
great.
I think that you guys are on the right track there. Good friend of mine, Kellen Adams, says that Leavenworth is 16 square miles.
Okay.
Really nowhere to grow outside of that because he talks about butts and seats in the school, and that's how they
Sure.
make money.
Yep.
From an economic development standpoint, though, where do you see Leavenworth growing in the future?
hmm So here's what I can tell you, and I won't put on my wonky statistics hat, although I could, and quote Census Bureau statistics.
Sure.
I'd say here's what we know. We know that Leavenworth is stable a lot in due to our federal partners, which is the federal prison, Fort Leavenworth, and the VA
Mhm.
hospital. So that's a benefit to our city. We stay stable even when other areas experience kind of economic dips, and that's also helps us grow as the city is going to move forward. So we know if we do little to assist that, it's still going to continue to grow. We are a suburb of Kansas City, and Kansas City has experienced amazing growth and done some really good revitalization work. We know, those of us who live here, we're 15 minutes, relatively going the speed limit on the back roads, to the airport, to the Kansas City, the brand new, awesome airport there. We know Legends is right down the road, and you can also be there in roughly 20 minutes, and they're seeing a lot of growth. So if we don't do much, just because of where we're placed and because of our general stability, we're going to grow somewhere in the low to mid single digits in population and with our economy. I don't think we want to settle for that though, right? I think this is how do we make that better? How do we grow faster? How do we draw things to Leavenworth that are going to continue to make this a community that our kids want to live in and stay? So that's really what we're looking to kind of figure out is what does that growth look like? So um, school is a great example. We know we still have parcels of property available in the city for growth. Some that are likely to be residential, some that are likely to be industrial, some that will be small businesses. So we know we have space for that. And I'd say there's a balance to be found in incentivizing some of those things to happen more quickly. So we know, just as a general rule, all of us know if you put more money towards something, you can usually make it happen quicker and faster. With taxpayer funds, we just really have to take a careful approach on making sure in the long term that's good for the city. So while we all want more housing, we all want more businesses, we want more industry, which is jobs and investment. Finding that right balance of what are the projects, what's going to happen naturally that we want to let happen naturally, and what's the right role of the city to provide some funding for that to happen. So that's also what the school district is talking about. And from the city, I think we absolutely support the Leavenworth School District and want to see them succeed and do well. We want the regreening of homes where, they had 3 kids and they moved out or aged out, and 3 kids in that house moved back. I think we want to see that. So we're really walking into some of those discussions of, is it RHID? Is that, is there a place for housing incentives to encourage people to live here or encourage projects to happen faster than they would have? That's possible. I think that's what the city commission is going to take some steps to start looking into. Is that the magic bullet that's going to solve all of our problems? It's not. And I'd say that's where, when you talk true economic development, I'll put forward is doing the best you can with what you have. So you can always look at other cities. Oh, I wish we had X, Y, and Z. We're Leavenworth. I don't. There's some method of copying and taking best practices, and there's also we're such an amazing city, and we have all this history. We have an academic global center in our midst. We have a university with St. Mary. We have all these assets. How do we take what we already have and maximize that either in messaging or working together as a group to bring in that development? So it's a long explanation, but that's kind of the vision from the economic development side to address that. I'd also say we still have some room to grow. Most likely, we'd look to the west. So we know
Mhm.
we're landlocked on 3 sides. Lansing pretty much has most of the space to the south. We have the river to the east, and we have Fort Leavenworth to the north. So really, the west is what we'd be eyeing for potential future expansion. But as also we've seen that grow more tightly. We've seen a lot of infill development. So if you drive around Leavenworth, you'll see housing in places that maybe you wouldn't. Those empty lots, the onesie
Mhm.
twosie. We've started to see some of that. We hear redevelopment of some former industrial spaces. A great example of that is the lofts. right over there by the Carousel Museum.
Hmm.
That was a city incentivized project to convert that from old industrial space to some really cool modern lofts that are well used and well utilized. So that's a great example of how just focusing on that and providing some funds can incentivize the private sector then to bring in that development.
You've talked about RHID.
Hmm.
I have attended simply by my job. We do the IT work for the city of Lansing,
Hmm.
some of their city council meetings, and I've seen some very upset citizens at some of those meetings over
Sure.
RHID. Can you tell our viewers what is RHID? Why would people be upset about it?
So I'd put this in the context of overall government incentives, right? So traditional thought is
What does it stand for?
so it used to be Rural Housing Incentive District. They've
Uh,
changed it.
okay.
It's in essence um, a tax benefit, if you will,
Tax
a
abatement.
financing mechanism
Hmm.
for housing. And that can be housing across the board from the spectrum. That can be low income housing, affordable housing. That can be multifamily housing, so apartments or duplexes. That can be moderate income single family housing, and that can be large lots, 3 bed, 3 bath, kind of, upwards of $500,000 type housing. So there's a full spectrum of housing. And the question I think for the Leavenworth governing body and the Leavenworth community is, what are our needs? What do we need most? And then where's the right incentive to put forward to make that happen? So I'll give you an example that's not RHID, but kind of fits in the conversation.
Sure.
So we've had two groups reach out to the city of Leavenworth. One wanting to do a senior housing, so senior affordable housing project for some available space.
Mhm.
And we've had one looking to do just low income family housing. We have, again, 2 lots available in various places of the city for that. They're pursuing state low income housing tax credits and came to the city and said, can you help us out as well to pursue this? Now, in our economic development policy, we know we have a need for affordable housing. Some of these are the people that you wouldn't think of just based on the income criteria. These are our firefighters, these are our teachers, these are people who work in our local small businesses. So, in some ways, if we're part of the funding package to support that and to make those projects happen, I think that's kind of a way we've already done that. So, both of these groups came to the city commission, requested incentives, and we provided them with, I won't go into much, but it's
Sure.
industrial revenue bonds, IRBs, which means that they can purchase the materials for their project using the city's sales tax exempt status.
Oh wow.
So, as an example, wouldn't you like to get a house and have your the all the boards and all the windows be sales tax free? I know I would, but
Yeah.
the question for the city, again, this is growth, and this is what the community needs. Is does it make sense to provide that in these circumstances? So in these cases, the governing body said yes, it makes sense to support some of these projects financially. The RHID is just another option in a list of tools that the city would consider to support development and redevelopment. So I'll share this. If I have a forum to share this with, the city already has a similar incentive to that called the Neighborhood
Mhm.
Revitalization Area District. This is downtown and extended and does very similar things, if you will, to the RHID. It's for both commercial buildings, industrial buildings, and residential housing, all of it. And it's a pretty generous district, all the way from Metropolitan at the south. I believe it goes to Spruce Street. Metropolitan in the north, Spruce Street in the south. It goes to 4th Street in the downtown. And then I think it's over to, again, I'm not looking at the map, either Broadway or 10th. This is a large chunk. This is almost the whole northeast corridor of the city. Right now, that program is available to everyone with a building in that district. You can get a property tax rebate check sent to you for up to 10 years, depending on how much you're going to invest in a building in that district. So this means you pay your taxes every year like you normally would to the county, and the county, Leavenworth County, sends you back a rebate check on the additional value you've added to that building from your building investment.
Oh, wow.
So you take, I'm gonna do some rough math. We'll just keep it real easy. You buy a building for $100,000. You put $100,000 into that building, and you've raised the taxable value of that property. You've made it a more valuable, better property. Looks good for the city.
Mhm.
Probably a better space for what you need it for. You can get a property tax rebate on 95% of that additional 100,000.
Oh, wow.
So, and that is a number of years that will occur.
Can I
So,
do that with my house?
if you're in the district, the answer
I
is
am.
yes. I keep saying, tell all your friends. The city has had this program for probably the last 10 years. It's an amazing incentive, and we already have that. So, as we talk RHID, that's awesome. It might serve another need, but we already have some of these existing incentives that we've already worked with. The what's called the NRA program, the neighborhood revitalization is one. We've also done TIF districts, very similar concept too. In essence, it says, I'll make a TIF easy. You have a green space, you have a lot, and the lot is worth $1,000. And if we do nothing, the lot's going to sit there for the next 10 years and probably only be worth $1,000. And, they're paying, I don't know, $50 in taxes. If we can bring in a project to that and capture what that's going to bring, let's say they put a $200,000, building on that, that's $200,000 more of development in the city. And even though there might be some tax incentives in the short run, in the long run, that's going to pencil out to way more than what that lot sitting worth $1,000 was going to be. So we already have that. That's how the Home 2 Suites in the downtown came to be, and the redevelopment the downtown there came to be. That's how the new hotels, when you come across the Big Blue Bridge, Centennial Bridge, into Leavenworth by Fort Leavenworth, the new hotels there, the 7-Eleven there, the child care there, the Taco Bell, if you're a fan over there. Those are examples of TIF districts that functions on that same premise. It's recognizing that there can be a role for a city to encourage development and provide tax incentives. I will also say on both of those, here's where it's important for the taxpayers to know, and where some cities may be more generous on that. The ideal is it pencils out, right? So I say kick the tires, have these projects show you what the numbers are. Ideally, this pencils out in the long run for the community, and that you may not get the taxes immediately, but if you have the growth, then you're going to get it in the long run. And that's what we're trying to do. The local government is a long game. We're not looking for next year or 2 years. We're looking 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line.
That's great. I know we talked about this up beforehand, but can you just kind of give us a quick update? I get a lot of questions about what's going on with Core Civic.
Sure.
In a nutshell, really what's going on with that. More than just, the snippet that we get that the city is suing them. Like, can you just give us a quick brief on that?
Sure. So the long and the short of this is the state of Kansas empowers cities to sort of make the rules for their community as it relates to growth and land use. This is what city planners do, right? They say, okay, well, here's how we're likely to grow, and here's how we see this land being used. So in the city of Leavenworth, what we have as part of that, wanting the city to just be coherent and make sense and be a quality community, has a requirement to open a detention facility that you must have what's called a special use permit. All that means is that there's just a process to go through to make sure that there's kind of a review of what you want to bring to the community in that location specifically. So if you'd like to have a detention facility in the city of Leavenworth, you're required to have, by city ordinance, a special use permit. And that means that you're going to go to the Planning Commission and request that. That's a volunteer body. They review this based on Kansas statutes and based on city ordinance. And there's several criteria they're required to look at. What's the characteristics of the neighborhood? Does this make sense? And so they review on the criteria. and they will either recommend approval or denial of that special use permit, and then it will go to the city commission, and they'll go through that same criteria. It's a second review. Again, this is a process set by state law.
Mhm.
It's quasi judicial, which means that they have to consider the information presented to them based on some of that set criteria. So the city, based on our ordinances, believes that for Core Civic to reopen as a detention facility, they would need a special use permit in the city of Leavenworth. Almost all cities I've worked in, this is my fourth, have a similar process, and this is across various states. So this is a known item that really gives cities some control and review on certain things. I worked in one city where all fast food restaurants with a drive-through had to have a special use permit, and that allowed traffic studies and traffic safety and a focus on that. That's why that's done, is just to kind of get those additional details and make sure it's going to be good for the community. Since some of that has come up, CoreCivic initially submitted for a special use permit
Mhm.
and then pulled their special use permit. They believe that they don't have to have a special use permit because they had functioned as a detention facility, and they have continued to have some maintenance staff and have utilities to the core civic property. So we would say, from a city perspective, um, generally we would expect them to continue the same use, so to be used as a detention facility. But their interpretation of that has been that they may not need a special use permit. So the city reviewed that and has said just a simple statement: we think you need a special use permit for that use in that zoning in the city of Leavenworth. I know it's I get this is an issue that sparks a lot of feeling, passion, emotion,
Mhm.
thought. These are part of, larger federal, global conversations. From a city perspective, this is a land use issue on whether that particular use is right in that particular space. So I can see it go from large issue. At the end of the day, though, that's the city's process. So the city has filed an injunction and letting them know that that's what we think the process should be.
That's
That's
that's great.
that's pretty simple. I mean,
Yeah.
from a city aspect, these things happen every day. These are normally, you probably aren't even paying attention to them. Um, you see it if there's let's say a daycare wants to open in a residential neighborhood. Generally there's going to be more traffic because parents will drop off children at
Mhm.
X time in the morning and pick them up at X in the afternoon. That's a great example of making sure that that space, that house, that neighborhood is equipped for something like that. So these are normal processes that happen at the city all the time. This one feels a little different and has a different level of visibility.
There's a lot of passion around it and a lot of people who are for and against it, really.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how that works out. What's the time frame on all of that?
Unknown.
Mhm.
Yeah. At this point, it's court action and attorneys, so I don't have a time frame.
Interesting. Okay, we're going to shift topics. We're going a little lighter now. That's been very interesting, and so we kind of go into a segment of what is on your mind, and we always
Mm.
start with Catherine. Catherine, what's on your mind right now?
I want to address the elephant in the room here. Your beard. You guys,
You think it needs to go?
I do. That is what's on my mind. I can't stop looking at it. Sorry.
Okay,
Well, that
no, I
was not on
appreciate
my
that.
mind, but now I will give
Now you can't
considerable
help but
thought
look
to
at
it.
it.
That's all I
It's been
have.
50 years. I've never grown a beard, to be fair. I just wanted to see what it would look like. I've gotten mixed reviews.
Okay. This is
My mother hates it.
okay.
My daughter hates it.
Are beards a winter item? Normally, I see when it starts to get colder, I see more beards
It's summer.
show up.
As I thought about doing this, I thought I probably should have done this during the winter. I should have consulted, Dustin, who's one of our lead techs, who always has a beard, and I should have asked him when the best time to grow it
Yeah.
was. But it was just on a whim, and my wife is starting to like it, so I'm not
Okay.
sure how long it's going to stick around. It's
Maybe once
starting to
it
drive me
fills in.
crazy a little bit, but
If it fills in, maybe I'll think about it.
I appreciate being on your mind. For me, I think, I'll give a shout out to Florida for winning the NCAA tournament. I think there was quite a few people who saw that coming.
Okay.
A lot of people thought Duke was going to win it. I was actually
I
hoping
wasn't
Houston
cheering
would
for them,
win
but
it.
that's okay.
I was sad that my Jayhawks bowed out in the first round. That was rough. Penny?
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily follow basketball as much as one should, being a KU graduate.
Rock
It's
Chalk?
it's almost required.
Yeah.
I will say I spent 7 years in the state of Kentucky. I did my undergrad there, and then I worked for the state there. So the only college basketball game I've ever been to was University of Kentucky at Rupp Arena. So I don't follow it much, but I was at UK when they won the Final Four in 1998, and that was
Oh, wow.
that was
The year I was
something
born.
to see. Awesome. So I just dated myself, which is cool. But yeah, they from living in Kentucky and living in Kansas and also living in North Carolina, I've lived in some big basketball states, but I have definitely learned most of those states don't love Duke. So I was thumbs down on Duke. I'll say it publicly because I'm cheering for any of the other 3 states versus Duke. So that's kind of what I got.
Well, Penny, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. I think we could have talked on for another hour, but I think that what we did. She just talked about it.
Well, it's his best, but
Oh.
I didn't know anything else, so that was fine.
Thank you for joining us. That's it for this week's episode of SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. Check in for next week when we have who's next week's guest?
I wouldn't say it just in case.
Just in case it jinxes us.
right.
It's a surprise. Thank you very much.
Thank you.